draw. Teams up to beat Monster Carrot Henchman. Teams up to beat Monster Carrot. Wins against Pilaf, Shu, and Mai. Loses against Yamcha and Puar as a Great Ape. Wins against police officers. Wins against Krillin. Wins against Launch. Wins against 3 preliminary fighters in his first tournament. Wins against Jiren and Nam in the tournament, but loses to Master Roshi as Jackie Chun. He wins against the Red Ribbon Army, Colonel Silver, Major Metallotron, Ninja Murasaki, the 5 Murasaki brothers, Booyan, General White and Ader, a martial artist, some punks. Teams up to beat the Pirate Robot, wins against Octopapa, loses against General Blue, then wins against General Blue, wins against Captain Yellow, loses against Mercenary Tao, then wins against Mercenary Tao, wins against Staff Officer Black. At Fortune Teller Baba's, he wins against Bandages the Mummy, Spike the Devil, and Grandpa Gohan. In the next tournament, he beats King Choppa, Pamput, Krillin, but then ultimately loses to Tien in the finals. Goku loses to Tambourine, fights Yajirobe to a draw, wins against Tambourine the next time, loses to King Piccolo, wins against Drum, wins against King Piccolo the next time, wins against Mr. Popo, loses against Kami. In the next tournament, he wins against King Choppa, Chi-Chi, Tien, and beats Piccolo in the final. In Dragon Ball Z, Goku loses to Raditz on Roshi's Island, and teams up with Piccolo to beat him later on. He wins against Nappa, teams up to win against Vegeta, wins against Raccoon, wins against Burter and Chase, loses to Ginyu, wins against Frieza, fights Future Trunks to a draw, loses against Android 19, loses to Perfect Cell, loses to Cell Juniors, wins against Yakon, loses to Majin Vegeta, fights Majin Buu to a draw, fights Buhan to a draw as Vegito, teams up with...
Y'all just see how he said he lost to Majin Vegeta? You see, he slid that in there, but, hopefully y'all paying attention.
Vegeta to beat Kid Buu, and wins against Oob. He loses against Beerus on King Kai's planet, and then loses again as Super Saiyan God. He teams up with Vegeta to beat Golden Frieza, wins against Botamo, loses to Frost, and loses to Hit. He wins against Copy Vegeta, he wins against Trunks, he fights Goku Black to a draw, he wins against present-day Zamasu. Goku and Trunks lose against Goku Black and Zamasu, and then Goku loses against Goku Black and Zamasu on his second trip as well. Goku and Vegeta fight Black and Zamasu to a draw, and ultimately Future Trunks, Goku, and Vegeta are able to team up and beat Fused Zamasu. Vegito is in this battle. Goku fights Hit to a draw, wins against Bergamo, fights Toppo to a draw, loses against Majin Buu, fights Krillin and 18 to a draw, wins against the Poachers on 17's Island, fights Android 17 to a draw, wins against Master Roshi, fights Gohan and Piccolo to a draw, wins against Gohan, wins against the Assassins from a different universe, and fights Frieza to a draw. Goku fights Ganos to a draw, wins against Nink, fights the Trio of Danger to a draw, wins against Comfrey and Chapel, teams up to beat the Trio of Danger, fights Jimmy-Zoo to a draw, fights Caulifla and Kale to a draw, teams up to beat Tupper and Zwar, fights So Rose to a draw, teams up to beat So Rose and Brienne, teams up to beat Dispo and Knissi, fights Magikayo to a draw, teams up to beat Prume and Dr. Rhoda, fights Brienne to a draw, loses to Jiren, fights Kuitsukai, Panacea, and Bororetta to a draw, wins against Caulifla and Kale, wins against Kefla, teams up to beat Zerloin, Rabanra, and Zarbudo, teams up to beat Damon, teams up to beat Kuitsukai, Panacea, Bororetta, and Paparoni, teams up to beat Agni Lhasa, fights Jiren to a draw, fights Jiren to a draw, loses to Jiren, loses to Jiren, teams up to beat Jiren. In Dragon Ball Super Broly, he beats Broly, loses to Broly, and then teams up to win as Gogeta against Broly. And in Dragon Ball Super, he loses to Vegeta, bringing him to 69 points and a total of 128 fights. He has a rounded up win rate of 54%. I'm going to put all the fighters up on the screen in order of their point total, and from this lineup I think it's important to note Krillin in that number 3 spot above Gohan, as well as Master Roshi taking the number 5 spot with more points than some of the stronger fighters who have more battles than him down below. I also knew that none of you guys thought Yamcha was going to be there above Future Trunks and Tien, but look at him right there. He knows when to stop fighting. Now we can shift up the focus to find what we were really waiting here to see, the win percentage, and we see Master Roshi in first place by a decent amount, a good 20% above Goku, the main character. And honestly, we can't move on without noting Yamcha in third place, above Vegeta, above Krillin, above Future Trunks, Piccolo, and Gohan. Speaking of Piccolo and Gohan, how did they get so far